Cardano ADA is up over 90% in the last 30 days, leading the top altcoins, including Solana, ETH, and Bitcoin, just to name a few. Now, as a part of today's video, I want to highlight 4 important reasons as to why I personally believe that Cardano ADA will outperform a lot of the altcoins in this current space. Without any further ado, let's jump on in. What's up, ADA Nation? Welcome to Dapp Central, your home for everything blockchain and crypto. I'm your host here for Reed. As a part of today's video, we're breaking down why Cardano will outperform in this upcoming bull market. Now, it's not just a headline here. I want to break this down, giving you guys 4 clear and distinct reasons as to why I believe that the narrative will begin to shape around Cardano. Without any further ado, let's jump right on in. But before we go any further, if it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content like this, please make sure to smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or maybe you just disagree with what I'm about to present here, leave a comment down below. So in order to sort of set the stage here before I dive into the 4 reasons, I want to just briefly review the price action for Bitcoin. So as we can see here, Bitcoin currently trading at around $90,000 US. We have the top from the from the second to last bull market reaching at around $20,000. The most recent top, or for the most recent bull market, reaching at around $69,000. And then of course, we've just blown through that, now currently trading at all-time highs, basically meaning everybody is currently in profit when it comes to Bitcoin. Now, with something like Cardano, we have yet to actually hit all-time highs, but we're well on our way. So as a part of today's video, I want to break down my reasoning as to what is going to make Cardano stand out, especially as the space becomes more crowded with more and more blockchains and protocols beginning to launch. So number 1 is the historical price performance. Again, I know that what happened or what has happened in times past doesn't necessarily dictate what will happen in the future. However, I think it's a really great indicator here to better understand what we can expect for this coming bull market. So looking here and just taking a broader look at Cardano, if you aren't aware, it has a hard cap supply of 45 billion tokens. And of the 45 billion tokens, we have right now around 35 billion ADA currently circulating. Now, if we take a look here, just historically, right, at how ADA has performed in bull markets, it's always made a higher high. So I'm actually going to jump back into the charts here and let's take a look at ADA here on the weekly. And what we'll notice here is that in the last 2 bull markets, Cardano has made a higher high. Now, granted, we aren't able to see any of this older data here before 2018. However, ADA was not trading at a value more than 36 cents. It was at around, I want to say 2 to 3 cents. And so that was sort of the first bull market. And then of course, ADA had another bull market where it made a higher high. This was back in 2021. Now, as it currently stands, we are still below that particular higher high. However, I think that during this particular bull season, we will be breaking above the $3.10 range. Now, let me give you guys my reasoning as to why I believe that's so. So during the last 2 bull runs, we've seen Cardano's dominance reach all the way up to 4%. This basically means that whatever the total crypto market cap is, Cardano had basically captured 4% of that market value. And so my logic and my thinking is that we're going to see Bitcoin going to at least around the $200,000 range. Now, let me break down why I believe that particular scenario could play out. So I'm going to jump back into this weekly chart here for Bitcoin. And what I want to just briefly do is just take a look and measure from the highs to the highs, and then also from the lows of the bear markets to the highs. Again, stick with me here. This will make a lot of sense, and I promise that. So here we have the peak from the previous bull market, and from there to the next peak of the next bull market was around a 231% gain. And so taking a look here, I've just sort of drawn a target out here, grabbing from the current bull market cycle high to the potential future bull market cycle high. That gives us, if we take roughly around the same percentage growth, to nearly $200,000 per Bitcoin. Now, in terms of timing, I have that being executed around the November/December timeline, which would line up perfectly with the 4-year cycle. Now, if we take a look here from the bottoms or from the lows to the tops, we have here nearly a 1,500% gain. And if we were to just take something roughly around that amount here, and we take a look again at that 200,000 Bitcoin price target, that gives us around 1,000% gain. Now, keep in mind that with the fact that Bitcoin is so large, it's going to take a lot more volume or liquidity in order for it to continue to push higher. Over time, we've seen what's called diminishing returns, meaning that as Bitcoin gets bigger, it gets harder to actually move the price much faster. Now, this actually plays into the benefit of something like Cardano, where the market cap is much lower, meaning we don't need as much liquidity in order to boost the price up. So just taking a look at that there, and just jumping back here, theoretically, let's just say that we are able to hit a $200,000 per Bitcoin valuation. That would then mean that Bitcoin's market cap would be roughly around $3.9 trillion. Now, with that particular market cap, what we could expect to see if ADA is able to reclaim that 4% dominance, that means that ADA will be able to capture somewhere around $160 billion, meaning that Cardano could potentially be worth $4.5 per ADA. Now, again, this is all assuming that it does, or Cardano does what it did in times past. But if the dominance breaks past 4%, there could definitely be more gains incoming for Cardano. So those are just bits of speculation. Obviously, the market conditions have to play out correctly, but that's just sort of my initial case here if ADA is able to do what it's done in times past. Now, one thing again that I've mentioned earlier is the fact that it does not take as much liquidity to move an asset like ADA compared to something like Solana or even Ethereum, right? Which if you take a look and if you do the math, you have basically Cardano needing somewhere around a 15 to 20x to get to the market cap of something like Ethereum. So the fact that Cardano is able to be decentralized, it uses UTXO, it's been up for over 2,600 days, and there's been no issues in terms of hacks or exploits, lets me know that we are definitely on the right path and that Cardano is super undervalued. The second piece is increased adoption. So point number one was the historical price performance as to why I think Cardano will outperform. Point number two now being increased adoption. So the first thing I want to highlight here is just the growing DeFi and app ecosystem. As it currently stands, we've got over 1,000 apps building here in the ecosystem. Now, while the majority of those are NFTs, do keep in mind that we've got pretty big platforms, for example, like MinSwap V2, we've got Indigo V2, we've got Liquid V2, and we've also got platforms like SundaySwap V3. So not only is the tooling getting better, but the protocols building on the chain are actually beginning to take advantage of the brand new smart contract development upgrades and integrations, for example, like Icon, that makes developing here in the ecosystem that much easier. In addition, we're also starting to see narratives building within the ecosystem. So one of those being RWAs or real world assets. We also have a lot of people focusing in now on DePIN. And as you look over the Cardano ecosystem, we've got projects, for example, like Nuvola, which aims to be a DePIN aggregator. We've also got World Mobile aiming to connect the unconnected through their telecommunications network. We've also got Finest Tokenized dipping their toes into RWAs, which have now also tokenized gold and black granite on Cardano successfully already. And then we've got the team from Palmyra aiming to basically make commodities a lot easier to engage with through their trading platform. Now, the next thing I want to focus on as well is going to be the partnerships and collaborations that we've seen within Cardano. So the first one being the Bitcoin OS collaboration or partnership, where we're going to see a ZK-based trustless bridge being able to be used or adopted by Bitcoin holders on the Bitcoin network, which will then allow for them to use their liquidity from the Bitcoin network within DeFi platforms on the Cardano blockchain. Very similarly, there's also been teases about Doge, which also uses UTXO, and how Cardano could potentially be the DeFi layer for that particular network there as well. So as you begin to think about that, if we just get 1% of the liquidity from Bitcoin right now as it stands, that could actually 40x the TVL here on Cardano. Again, that shows the disparity right? Or the big gap between the amount of liquidity in something like Bitcoin and something like Cardano, and how big of an impact just a sliver of that particular liquidity could make here within the ADA ecosystem. Now, last but not least, I also want to quickly highlight a few other partnerships, for example, like the ones that we've seen or teased about with NASA, right, where they're currently working alongside them for their supply chain management needs. We've also seen partnerships coming out from Emergo with Kinka Gold, bringing tokenized gold onto blockchain. We've also seen them partnering up with GSR for market making and liquidity purposes. And then most recently, a partnership with Axelar for interoperability. We've also seen a Cosmos-based bridge coming out. There's also a bridge back over into Ergo. So again, a lot of really bullish news here when it comes to integrations and partnerships. As we get ready to close out this particular point here about increased adoption, I want to talk about institutional interest, where we've now seen Coinbase launching their Coin 50 index, basically allowing for people to jump into multiple assets without necessarily having to pick one crypto to ride or die. So with their Coin 50 portfolio, we have Cardano with an allocation of 1.4 or so percent of the entire portfolio, meaning that as people invest into Coin 50, they're going to be getting exposure to Cardano inadvertently. Of course, as Cardano grows, they could definitely increase the allocation of Cardano's representation within that portfolio, but it's at least good to see that we've at least started off on the right foot by being included in something like that. Now, we also heard from Liquid, which is a protocol here building in the ecosystem, about the fact that they've been included, or that they've created an ETP, or an exchange traded product, allowing for traditional investors to buy ADA. We also have the 21 Shares platform, who has a Cardano based ETP. And then if I'm not mistaken, BlackRock has a couple of different indexes, which one of them is a X Ethereum smart contract fund, which actually has a portion of ADA also allocated to it. So as people's risk appetite grows, and specifically institutional investors' appetites grow to jump into crypto, Cardano appears to be positioned to be included in some of those early conversations. The third point, and the third reason why I believe Cardano will outperform this particular bull market, is because of the technological advancements. So people have cited Cardano historically for security and for Cardano being slow. But if you've been paying attention and if you've been in the ecosystem, you will definitely know that we've been working on scaling with Hydra finally getting close to being released on the main net. If you've missed it, Doom was run on Hydra, where we saw nearly uncapped transactions per second being processed in different Hydra heads, and that information being rolled down back into the Cardano main layer 1. In addition, we're expecting scaling solutions, for example, like Ouroboros Laos, Ouroboros Paris, and then we're also expecting layer 2s, for example, like Midgard, that use ZK proofs in order to take a lot of the load off of the main Cardano L1. Lastly, we have different versions of Hydra, for example, like Hydra Zoa, being developed by developers here within the ecosystem. Now, at the same exact time, right, keep in mind that not only does Cardano have the decentralization and the security, it also has the underdog aspect of it. So if you compare Cardano to ETH, not only has Cardano been up longer than ETH, it's more secure than ETH, it's more decentralized than ETH, it's much more accessible from a fee perspective than ETH. It only makes sense to me that Cardano basically has a catch-up run as more people realize the value and how close it is, right, to Bitcoin, which is basically considered a digital gold. So not only can Cardano be used as a store of value, in my opinion, I also think that Cardano could actually be used for something like smart contracts, which of course Bitcoin doesn't have natively just yet. So as we get ready to wrap up here, the very last thing I want to highlight as a part of today's video when it comes to Cardano outperforming in this particular bull run is the fact that the market sentiment and the correlation with Bitcoin has basically changed. So people's risk appetite has grown immensely in this particular bull market. We've seen the introduction of ETFs, basically multi-billion and multi-trillion dollar companies now using their funds to buy into crypto. We've seen big household names, for example, like Elon Musk, also dipping down and buying in on Bitcoin. Of course, Michael Saylor. You even have people like Donald Trump attending Bitcoin-based conferences. You know, if you would have told people that you've had presidential candidates talking about Bitcoin 6 or 7 years ago, they probably would have called you crazy. But it's now a reality that we're able to go through or actually live through in this particular moment. So while it might seem like everybody currently holds Bitcoin, keep in mind that it's only really about 3 to 4% of the global or the entire population around the world that have access to crypto assets, letting me know that we are still extremely early when it comes to the adoption curve for Bitcoin and crypto assets. So that's really it there. I want to just quickly highlight the fact that the market sentiment has changed. We've got the ETFs, we've got different nation states, for example, like President Bukele, and I want to say that is El Salvador, picking up a lot more Bitcoin. They're now in profit. You've got Bhutan, who's also now begun purchasing more crypto. And then there's also been rumors that different countries within the Middle East are now also beginning to accumulate more and more crypto. Of course, the US government already holds crypto from seizures and things like that. And then, of course, other countries like China have also been into Bitcoin for a very long time now. So that'll do it here for today's video. As I get ready to close out here, do keep in mind that altcoins also have some ETFs, which have been approved. So ETH now has an ETF, making it a lot more accessible. And of course, there's now talks about Solana potentially getting an ETF. So as more people are talking about, different altcoins getting ETFs, that just lets me know that people are now becoming risk off, meaning that it could just only be a matter of time before we have an official ADA ETF. That will do it here for today's video, breaking down 4 key reasons why Cardano will outperform in this upcoming bull market. Number 1, just taking a look at the historical price performance. If ADA were to do what it did in times past, that could definitely mean anywhere between a $4 to $8 ADA. If we continue to get increased adoption, that could also play into this as well. And then, of course, there's a lot of technical advancements which are currently being worked on. And then, of course, just looking at the broader market, there's more risk appetite as more people are now starting to see the value of Bitcoin and crypto assets. That will do it here for today's video. Again, if you found this to be helpful or informational, I would appreciate you if you could smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by the channel and you want more content like this, breaking everything going on in the ecosystem, consider subscribing. And last but not least, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave those down below. That said, and as always, I'll see you guys in the next video.